Hey guys, it's Barron the Wine Missionary, here with you today to talk about some of the major wines in Europe. So there are major varieties when it comes to the grape varietals themselves, like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, these sorts of things. And then there are also major regions within countries in Europe. And today I'll be talking about some of both, but the idea is just to hit some highlights when it comes to some different styles, some different varietals, and some different regions in Europe. I'm always looking out for great values when it comes to wine. So I know that I can get awesome wine if I spend a lot of money, but my goal is to provide you with selected wines just for you that really fall under that €12 price range. So let's get started. Today, I'm gonna start with this Crémant d'Alsace. And guys, you can check out this video right here above if you want to check out a little bit of information about Crémant d'Alsace, which is in France. It's actually on the eastern border with Germany. And in this video, you're actually going to see, is it worth spending the extra money on real champagne from France? Or can you really get great values when it comes to Crémant d'Alsace from the eastern side of France on the border with Germany? So this is made with a blend of Pinot Noir, but what you're going to see is that it has a beautiful color. And so we'll pour it in the glass and tell you a little bit about what I'm tasting here. Wow, it's got a gorgeous color. So as you can see, I'm going to hold this up against this nice little LED lamp that I have here on the table, and it really helps me to see the color well. So it has a beautiful salmon color, little bit of a pink tinge as well, kind of a rose tinge, and then little tiny bubbles coming up as well. Really, really pretty. So I'm going to give it a sniff here. Oh wow, really pretty. It's like strawberries and cream is what it smells like. Really pretty. So let's go ahead and give it a taste now. Wow, I'm going to be honest with you, I really didn't want to spit that. It's absolutely delicious. Wow, yeah. So strawberries and cream, that's really what it reminds me of. Even on the palate, has a little bit of a sweet, like a ripe raspberry in there as well. Just so easy going, really. It's finishing right now, and I really love how it's very pleasant and it's mild. There's a little bit of refreshing acidity here too, and it really invites you for the next glass. So I'm really happy about this property here in Alsace. It's the Faller family, and we actually got to meet them and taste a lot of different wines at the winery there in Alsace. Such a sweet family. The patriarch is still there. Guy's probably in his 70s or 80s. Such a friendly guy. And then his daughter is actually inside serving samples to all the guests. So it was a tremendous experience, and wow, I really recommend this. Really delicious and easygoing style. Brut Rosé from Alsace, known as Crémant d'Alsace, which means a sparkling wine made in the champagne method, coming from that part of France. So there's the first wine. The second wine that I have here, as you'll see, is a Pinot Grigio. This is called Borgolago, is the name of the winery here. And this is coming from the Veneto. And in the Veneto, this is up in the northeastern section of Italy. And what you're going to find there that most people know about is the lovely city of Venice. So that's really what the Veneto is really known for when it comes to travelers and whatnot from all over the world. But this area of Italy is actually known for its crisp, kind of easygoing style of white wines. And then they also have some red wines that they make there as well. Not really as known throughout the world, but they usually tend to be very easygoing style red wines coming from this area. But what this area is really known for is their Pinot Grigio. So I'm just looking at the color here, and it really has a light color, which is very typical with the Pinot Grigio grape. Just a very kind of what I would call light straw color. Just some tinges, maybe a hint of like a bright gold leaf around the edges, but very classic for Pinot Grigio made in the modern style. Now with the sniff, wow, yeah, very, very traditional Pinot Grigio here. So what I'm getting is a little bit of apple, also a little bit of pear as well. Yeah, very easygoing style of Pinot Grigio here. So now let's go ahead and take a sip. Yeah, wow, this is going to be a very crowd-pleasing style of Pinot Grigio. It's delightful, it's well made, it's clean, has a little bit of acidity. It's a little soft for some of the Pinot Grigios coming from that area, especially when you go a little bit further north from the Veneto. You'll find the Pinot Grigios are really starting to get more crisp, a little bit more fresh acidity. But this is going to be great for a lot of guests, just an easygoing style. Very, like I said, very cleanly made. Yeah, so I'm a fan there. Like I said, apples, pears, white apples, white pears, I should specify there because it's a very specific sort of fruit profile. So there's the Pinot Grigio. So moving on to the next wine. This is cool. I'm really glad to have this wine in particular because I have not tried this particular varietal from this region yet. So I'm actually very, very excited to try it. So this is actually a Chardonnay from Germany. And while I've had one from this direction in the Markgräflerland area in the Baden, this one actually comes from an area called the Rheinhessen that is much further north from where I'm located in Germany. The cool thing about this area of Germany is that it is well known for wonderful Riesling, but they're also making some other white varietals in this area as well, like Chardonnay, like Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio even, which they call Grauburgunder here in Germany. But very cool area. So this is called Thule, is the name of the winery and the family. This is their Chardonnay and it's called the Kalkmergel, and it's a 2019. Now one of the cool things about this wine is that it's actually been barrel aged and it's actually been stirred on the lees, which is the dead yeast. What this does for Chardonnay is it gives it a nice creamy texture, and then the oak aging also tends to give it a little bit more structure. So let's check this out. So this actually has a light color as well, which is not very surprising since it's coming from a cool climate area here in Germany that's well known for Riesling. So when I look at this color, what I see is it's got a little bit darker color straw, a little tinge of like a lemon yellow as well, but it's very clear, it's very bright, and very pale, which tells me that this comes from a cool climate when it comes to Chardonnay. Chardonnays that have much fuller, deeper kinds of yellow colors and gold colors, that usually tells you it's from a riper area, like Napa or Sonoma in California as an example. So let's smell it. Oh, wow. Beautiful. Yeah, so right on the nose, I get this beautiful sort of like a fresh, light butter characteristic. So don't think like theater popcorn butter here. It's a very fresh, very delicate sort of. sort of butter. And then the fruit that I get in the background, it's very much background. In other words, it's not forward when I smell it. The buttery character is very forward when I smell it, but there just seems to be a little bit of like a little bit of a golden apple maybe just in the background, but it's a little bit hidden behind this wonderful buttery characteristic. So let's go ahead and taste it now. Wow. Still finishing. What a beautiful Chardonnay. This is a very, what I would call a very pure style of Chardonnay. Even though it's been oak aged in neutral oak, even though it's had the lees stirred, which creates that creamy characteristic, it tends to be, this is a very much a Chardonnay purist type of wine. So if you want a like what I say, if you want a Chardonnay without all the makeup, this is really a beautiful example coming from the northern wine growing areas of Germany. Not known for Chardonnay around the world, but there's a lot of it being made in that area. Quite a delightful wine. So let's move on to the reds now. So the first red that I have today is coming from the Brut, and this is a cru, which is one of the 10 crus that is located in the Beaujolais area. So the Beaujolais, if you're looking at Burgundy, going from north to south, the Beaujolais area is at the very south end when it comes to this region. And Beaujolais and the grape Gamay are really synonymous. There was even a wine back in the day that was made by Barron. It was called Gamay Beaujolais. You may actually remember this. So Gamay is the name of the grape, or sometimes it's called Gamay Noir, which means that it's dark. But this is what this region is known for. 10 different crus within Beaujolais. You guys have seen Beaujolais wine out there. You've seen Beaujolais Village, which means those wines have to come from these 10 different areas. But this is coming from one of these specific villages, which is called Brut, which is really cool. So I'm really excited to taste this wine. Oh man, the color is beautiful, you guys. So you may be asking me, what do I have sticking out the top of all of these? Well, these are just simple pours. So they're these little foil pours like this. Super cheap. You can find them just about anywhere online. But don't pay more than, 25 cents each. There are big name brands. You don't need to pay that. And then these three are actual aerators, and they help to pour and aerate the wine at the same time, and then they stop the drip, which is wonderful. So you're not having to mess with a napkin and towel all the time. So back to the Brut, Beaujolais. Has a gorgeous color, you guys. So the color is very, very traditional when it comes to the Gamay grape here in the Beaujolais region of France. It's gorgeous, just has a beautiful sort of a violet color, even just shades of purple around the edges. It tells you that it's a young wine, but it also tells you that this is Gamay. So this is the way that Gamay looks for the first few years in the bottle. Gamays are typically meant to be consumed young because they're so fruit forward, beautiful and delicious. My mouth is already watering before I've even tasted it. So let's smell it. So very classic here of the Beaujolais region. You get this sort of very grapey character, red grape, almost like red grape jelly character on the nose. Don't think mouth, I haven't tasted it yet, right? But that's the sort of nose that I get immediately when I smell many Beaujolais. Yeah, very grapey. I would also say there may be like some loganberry in there as well. maybe a touch of like strawberry, raspberry too, but it's delightful. It just, the nose on Beaujolais just wants to draw you in for a taste. So let's do that. Wow. Guys, this is delightful. Still finishing in my mouth here. So there is a really cool, almost sort of rose petal characteristic. Like, okay, I've never eaten a rose. I have eaten edible flowers. And have you guys done that? Comment below. But it just has this sort of rose petal character, like a red rose petal character. If you could think about, if you were to put that in your mouth and what that might taste like, you know, based on the smell and such, it has this sort of velvety characteristic as well. So pretty. Can you hear the church bells going off? It's Friday afternoon. Yeah, such a beautiful wine. So the finish, it's very clean. It's not a long and lingering sort of style of finish, which is what I'm used to when it comes to the Gamay grape. But there is a wonderful acidity, and this is a very pleasant wine. So especially when you're inviting guests over and you're not sure if you've got red wine drinkers or not, Beaujolais is always a wonderful choice and option because it's a style of red wine that really appeals to everybody. But don't be surprised when it's the first empty bottle. So there's a tip, buy 2 bottles of Beaujolais. So there's the Beaujolais. Do a little bit of a rinse with the next wine here. All right, the next wine that we have here is a Primitivo. Primitivo is so popular these days, you guys, especially here in Europe, but especially here in Germany. One of the reasons for that is that the Primitivo grape tends to be very fruit forward. It has a very kind of ripe character that doesn't remind you of like super acidic or sharp sorts of tastes or smells. It tends to be very inviting. So I did a blind tasting on Primitivo wines, and I also snuck in a red Zinfandel from California as well. If you want to watch that tasting, check out this video above. But the reason that I've sneaked in a red Zinfandel into that blind tasting is because the Primitivo grape and the Zinfandel grape are the exact same grape. It just happens to be that they have different names. The Primitivo grape is a very ancient one, actually. But in this area of Italy, we're talking about the heel of the boot. This entire area is called Puglia. There's an area called Salento within Puglia, which is an area that's very well known for producing Primitivo, which is what we're tasting today. So Primitivo is a style of wine that Germans especially like because it gives you many times a characteristic of like a sweet sort of smell and a sweet sort of characteristic. That doesn't mean necessarily that it has residual sugar in it, which would really make it taste sweet, although sometimes Primitivo wines from southern Italy do have a little bit of residual sugar. Some are completely dry, so we'll check this one out and see where it lands. So let's take a look at the Primitivo. Yeah, very classic Primitivo in the glass. So it's really kind of more of a crimson, more of like a little bit of garnet around the edges, but it's very dark, very rich, and the color goes all the way out nearly to the very edge. It also has very thick legs. This also tells me that it is going to have some unctuousness, some richness to it, which is what I expect from the Primitivo grape, AKA Red Zinfandel. So let's go ahead and give it a sniff now. There is a little bit of like a black plum that I smell on the nose. Also just maybe a hint of like a raisin. Think more like, don't think dried with sugar on it, but just think of like, you know, if you've ever had raisins that were just made, or like kind of a shrunken grape, it kind of has that smell as well. But not very expressive on the nose. So let's go ahead and taste it now. Yeah, guys, this wine, this is what I've really come to learn is a very kind of typical, traditional style of Primitivo. Really, as you'll see in that video, if you watch the blind tasting, there's just such a wide range in prices as well when it comes to Primitivo. And what you'll find is that the, spoiler alert, the wine that was actually rated #1 in my blind tasting was one of the cheapest ones. I think it was like 350 euros for that Primitivo. So you can find such a range in prices, but what I found is that they do have some similarities, although sometimes you can get what you paid for. But also the most expensive Primitivo that I tasted at that blind tasting was actually ranking one of the worst. So marketing, it's kind of a thing when it comes to wines like this, unfortunately. And it's made in such a style where it's not very sweet, which some Primitivos can be sweet, as I mentioned earlier. This one actually has a pleasant finish, and that same kind of flavor profile, I would say, again, kind of a black plum, a little bit of raisin in there as well. It's all just kind of that primary fruit, and it goes all the way through the finish. So there's no oak, there's nothing that's interesting or complex about this wine. It is what it is. It's a very simple, easy-going style of red, I would say, but it's well made. So yeah, pretty good. Okay guys, and for number last, we'll just do a little bit of a rinse here again. There we go. Wow, color of this wine is beautiful, you guys. You can see it even as I'm pouring it here. So this last wine, the name is Grandes Quintas. This is from the Douro, one of the major areas there in Portugal that is known not only for producing port, but also for producing delicious red wines. So the grape varietal that is primary in this wine is called Touriga Nacional, the primary red grape grown in this area for port and then for most of the red wines coming out of that area. So guys, let's take a look at the color of this red wine from Portugal. Gosh, it's beautiful, you guys. Take a look at this photo. It is just gorgeous. So it is like this deep, deep purple. I would even call it like a royal purple. It's just so gorgeous. Completely purple around the edges, just barely giving way to a little bit of a bright edge, but also, and then a very dark center as well, which tells you it's going to be a rich, concentrated style of wine. Also, just looking at the legs on this wine as well, tells you that it is going to be a rich style. They're quite thick, quite slow. Just a gorgeous wine in the glass. So let's smell it. Wow. Right off the bat, I get this really cool kind of semi-sweet cocoa note, which I just love on this wine here. And then there's black fruit. So I would say like there is a little bit, maybe black cherry. I would say there's just a touch of like a fig in this as well. Don't think like dried figs, you know, think of like a fresh fig if you've ever had one of those. Yeah, and then a cool kind of a black licorice sort of note in here as well. Got a lot of cool, interesting aromatics going on. So let's go ahead and taste it. Oh man, you guys, wow. So full bodied. It completely coats your palate. That really cool kind of semi-sweet cocoa note is very prominent throughout. And then like there's this underlying, like, yeah, I would say there's a little bit of a fig there. I would say like a black cherry, even like a, it even has kind of like this cool sort of brownie note as well. So my Americans will know what I'm talking about here. But it just has such a cool flavor profile. It's rich and it's bold, but I would not say that it's just overly aggressive like some of these wines from this area can be. It is high on the alcohol spectrum, so it's actually 15% alcohol, which is quite high. You know, some of the ports kind of begin at the 17-18% range, so it's actually kind of going that direction. But guys, it's a great value at a great price, and I would say this is also a great selection to something that's different, something that's unique, but is a very well-known European country, number one in Portugal, and then number two, well-known grape, but being used in a very different sort of way than the traditional port fortified wines coming from this area of Portugal. So guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this tasting today. Like I said, really just an introduction to some of the major grapes and some of the major regions and some of the major styles here in Europe. There'll be much more of these to come. But guys, if you've enjoyed this, then please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of these, then please subscribe and check it out. Also, you can go to my website. It's www.winemissionary.com. There you'll find lots of articles that I've written about different wines. You'll find different videos that I've posted about wines, like me in the vineyards and me tasting wines and all kinds of different things. So guys, check it out. But for now, I thank you so much for hanging out with me and tasting through some of these wines. And until next time, I'll say cheers. Cheers. I'm not surprised though, considering that this is a cool climate Chardonnay coming from this area. Tractor coming through there. So let's smell it. Almost forgot to put back on the champagne cap here. Gotta keep it bubbly.